morning. A couple of people are already here. I'm Alex, I'm the trainer today. So if you have any questions before we get started, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, I'll wait for a few more people to join and probably get started around 10:05. I'm also going to pause the recording. I'll restart it once we're all underway. All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the very, very first session of our NVivo online training. My name's Alex. I'll be your lovely NVivo trainer for today. Just in terms of a little bit of housekeeping before I get my PowerPoint slides on, I have started looking after my friend's cat, and she's decided to be really curious today. And she's like threateningly playing with lots of things by the window. And I'll admit I'm easily distracted. So if you see me just turning off to the side and making little faces at her, that's is okay. She's just being really, really cute, and I cannot fight my feelings when it comes to this cat. She is just absolutely adorable. Um, anyway, that's about it in terms of the sort of non-professional housekeeping. For the other stuff, I'll start up my slide deck and get talking through all of the things that we are going to be learning over the next hour or so. And so today's the first part of learning about NVivo. It's going to cover very, very basic stuff. Some of it you might find is actually probably, it depends on your background, but it can be quite basic, and you might think that you haven't really learned anything that you couldn't do just by Googling a few things or watching some other YouTube videos. I try to make this as accessible as possible, and I try to go through it step by step. Part of the reason for that is that I think with qualitative research at the University of Melbourne, there's a lot of like mature age students or people who've been in industry for ages, 10, 20 years or whatever, who are then sort of expected to just suddenly become experts in any type of research software. And I don't think that's particularly fair. And so I like to hopefully make this as accessible and easygoing as it can be. So I do apologize if some of you find it a little bit too rudimentary today. So I'm going to sort of talk a little bit about the course today, and then I am going to introduce myself. I am a little bit under the weather, so I apologize if that comes across in my voice, but it's nothing too bad. I'm going to talk a bit about myself and the course. Then I'm going to talk about NVivo as a piece of software and how it sort of fits in. And then the bulk of today is going to be spent demonstrating how you get some data into NVivo, and then how you start that process of coding and interpreting that data. Now, if at any point today you have any questions at all you want to ask, you can either unmute yourself and ask immediately, or you can leave a question in the chat. I do try to monitor it throughout the day. It might be the case that it sort of takes me a little bit of time to realize that there's a message in the chat, but there's also going to be a few opportunities today where I'm going to ask you to play around in NVivo for a little bit if you have it installed. Gives me a bit of time to catch my breath because I happen to talk quite quickly. And those are also really good opportunities to ask any clarifying questions that you might have as well. And so I'll push through and start talking a little bit about myself. I'm also a PhD candidate. I'm in the last, I hope, 6 months of my candidature. I'm sort of polishing off all of these different bits and pieces of my thesis. I look at conspiracy theories in Australia during COVID-19 and sort of how they're used and what they mean. And I'm desperately hoping to complete in December. But I'll admit, it's tough. The last 6 months of a PhD, not happy with it. Oh, it's tough. It's difficult. So to kind of keep myself sane, I play a ton of board games. I probably should have updated this. I was big into Dune Imperium Uprising. But I'm actually bigger into Heat Pedal to the Metal now, which I would universally recommend that anyone gets. It's really, really fun. Play lots of role-playing games. I put on silly goblin voices for my friends. And in terms of my professional qualifications, I've been a tutor at the university for 3 years, and I have 5 years experience teaching NVivo as well. So I do know my stuff. I might not sound it sometimes, but I promise you, I do know my way around NVivo, and I do know my way around qualitative research a little bit as well. So in terms of how the 5 sessions are going to be structured for this course, I've sort of tried to respond to some feedback I've received over these. I can't respond to all the feedback. I'm going to ask you for some at the end of the training. I can't respond to all of it because some of it's sort of a bit, you'll get this with feedback, right? Some people say the training doesn't is too fast. Some say it's too slow. Some say it should be longer. Some say it should be shorter. But I've tried to find common threads that I've been able to address. The first one, primarily, is that training at this university and just in general is often really impersonal, quite difficult to follow. It's really easy to feel like you're left behind. So I try to make myself as available as possible to talk. I do run in-person sessions as well, which are nice opportunities to be able to meet other people. Researchers have often said to me that there's a lack of sort of advanced support for software, where it's like easy to kind of get in on the ground floor when it comes to learning research software at the university, but very difficult to then learn, particularly for qualitative research, the kind of advanced things that you need to learn to be able to conduct a project efficiently. And then finally, people feel super isolated at this university and at universities generally, especially if you started during the pandemic like myself. It's pretty hard to find a sense of community and resources. And so if you have any questions about that kind of stuff, I do try to run, and I'm hoping to run some more community events closer towards summer. Things like a sort of shut up and code session where you just come in and do some coding for your project, qualitative coding and whatnot. But if you have any questions about resources or anything like that, you can shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to provide it. So hopefully today, kind of address a little bit of that. Hopefully it doesn't feel as overwhelming as other training can feel, and I don't want you to think that I am going to be sort of militantly policing different questions and things that people ask. There's no silly questions when it comes to NVivo. As we'll see, it's a pretty sort of sometimes frustrating piece of software to learn, and things aren't always obvious, and things different places on different devices. So please do ask as many questions as possible. So there's 5 parts. Today, we're going to just sort of be introduced to the software as gently as possible. We're going to look at getting our files in and then starting to code them. And I'm going to talk about different ways that you can go about coding your data, different strategies that you can adopt, which I hope are helpful, because it's one of the big pressure points that I've found researchers have at the university is like, how do you get started coding? I've spoken to lots of people about this, and they tend to struggle with feelings of being incorrect when it comes to coding, particularly if you're kind of not used to qualitative research. There's a real pressure that when you start interpreting your data, that you do so in as like systematic and as clean a way as possible. And from my experience, that just doesn't happen. From my experience, coding is a really messy process with qualitative data, and we can learn lots of tips and tricks to help with coding, but it is certainly going to be something that is never going to be perfect the first time that you do it. And the cat's now rolling around on the floor next to me, which is really cute. In the second part, we're going to start looking at a few more advanced features. So we're going to look at a few strategies for organizing our coding. I'll look at them a bit today if I have time, because the other part of part 2 tends to take quite a lot of time. And that's where we look at storing information when you're using interviewees or focus groups, or survey respondents and things like that. They're called cases, and they use things called classification sheets in NVivo, and they're really, really important if you want to be able to say, okay, well, was there a difference in the way that narratives were presented between sort of population group A and population group B? Whether it was, age or gender or occupation or things like that. It's a super common research question, and something that NVivo is really good at doing if you know about this case stuff and if you know how it interacts. And unfortunately, because these sessions are only an hour long, what we do in part 2, we're not really going to see how that can help us until part 3 and part 4, where we look at framework matrices and we look at queries in those parts, and those parts really tie everything together. So if you are sort of a little bit lost at the end of part 2, don't worry. That's sort of an unfortunate consequence. It's really hard to teach all of those things at once, but it will make sense as we go through part 3 and 4, which are sort of looking at things like note taking, preparing for writing, and visualizing, and all of these sorts of things, and starting to leverage some of NVivo's more computationally functions. And then finally, in the 5th one, we're going to look at visualizations. We're going to look at some of the common visualizations in NVivo, some things to be aware of when you're doing that, how to get them out of NVivo so that they can look a little bit prettier and a bit more standardized, and also talking about what makes an effective visualization, which I've derived from my lovely colleagues at the HAS task force. Bad joke incoming. This is not a task force designed to learn about avocados. It is instead a task force that looks at the humanities, arts, and social sciences and how we can better engage with them at a digital research level. Does anyone have any questions about this before I move on and start talking a bit about NVivo? Wonderful. All right. So, NVivo. This is the course as well. There's some extra stuff that I offer. I forgot about this slide. I always forget about this slide. Look, I do advanced sessions on how to do literature reviews in NVivo, how to work with structured data sets like surveys more effectively, and how to work with others and collaborate on NVivo across a range of different contexts. I will offer some drop-in sessions later in the year, and also I have recordings, obviously, of this session will be made available, but I have pre-existing recordings of this one in previous years, as well as on the Mac version. And the Mac version of NVivo looks very, very different to the Windows version. And so if you need a little bit of support there, a little bit of guidance, I have recordings available. Those are applicable to the current version of NVivo because it hasn't really changed too much in the last few years. Okay, now I can talk about NVivo. So NVivo as a tool is a piece of computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software, CACDAS. There's lots of other tools. There's similar software like Atlas TI, MaxQDA, Quirkos, Deduce, others. Importantly, recently, Lumivero, the company that owns NVivo, also just bought Atlas.ti. So there's a very good chance that they sort of are clearly trying to position themselves as the main player in qualitative data analysis software. So just keep an eye on that space, as I imagine the sort of software offerings might become increasingly limited. There's also packages for R and Python that do it as well, although I don't have a whole heap of experience in that area. And what all of these software packages are designed to do is provide a nice space and interface for you to organize and explore primarily qualitative research data. It's not a space really to do automated interpretations of data. It's not a space to do things like natural language processing to any sophisticated degree, topic modeling. You can't really use NVivo to do all of these like wonderful novel things with generative AI and stuff like that. They're sort of integrating some of that. But NVivo is primarily qualitative, and doing a research project in NVivo still takes quite a lot of time. I think it takes less time than if you were doing it by hand, if you were doing it manually, but it is primarily designed to assist you in a qualitative research project rather than doing much of it for you, which is really, really worth mentioning. NVivo does have some automated features built in, automated thematic analysis, automated sentiment analysis. I don't think they're particularly sophisticated, and I don't think they are appropriate to be included in any academic publication. That's my sort of professional recommendation because they don't really tell you how they get the results, and I don't think the results are sophisticated enough to be able to substantiate a project. I think they can be a good start. They can be quite useful for bits of exploration and the sort of early stages of figuring out a project, but I think there's much more sophisticated alternatives out there that are a little bit more advanced, but that are much more sort of best practice when it comes to this kind of work. Now, the main way NVivo does anything is all relational, and it uses these little containers called codes, which we're going to be working with today. We're going to be putting little bits of text and data into these codes and seeing how they all work. But that's really one of the sort of foundational pieces of information that we need to know about today. Now, a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to version management with NVivo, because it's a bit of a nightmare. So there is currently available at the University of Melbourne. You can access NVivo 12, which was released in 2018. You can then also access NVivo 1.0/NVivo 20, which was released in 2020, and for some reason, parts of certain websites that maybe haven't been updated refers to this as the most up-to-date version of NVivo. It's actually incorrect. The most up-to-date version of NVivo is NVivo 14, which, if you download it, you might get an option to install NVivo 15 instead, which looks identical to NVivo 14, only that it has now the ability for you to pay some extra money and access a generative AI assistant to help you with your project, which I haven't done yet, but that's really the difference. So hopefully you have either NVivo 14 or NVivo 15 installed today. If you don't have anything installed, that's fine. I will, you can still listen along. There's recordings available. You can take notes, draw pictures, ask questions, all of those things. But I just wanted to sort of flag that. If you create a project in any previous version of NVivo, so say you create a project in NVivo 12, you can then import that into NVivo 14 or 15, and it'll update it. you can't go backwards. So you can't create a project in NVivo 15 and expect to open it in NVivo 12. And then also the Mac and Windows versions of NVivo are very different. They have very different functionality. They have different layouts. They have different terminology. They have different pieces in different areas. My strong recommendation is if you have the choice, and most researchers at the university do in some sense, because you can often get a computer from the university, or the university can run an operating system on a different device for you. I would strongly recommend that you use the Windows version of NVivo wherever possible. In some of NVivo's own official teaching videos and seminars that they run, their trainers will be on a Mac and they'll be running Parallels or something like that to use NVivo as if it were on a Windows device. So there are, it's a pretty strong recommendation. I don't really know why they haven't updated the Mac version enough to be much more appropriate, given that a pretty significant proportion of researchers use sort of Mac operating systems and things like that. But if you have the choice, if you can, please use it on a Windows device. It's not the end of the world if you have to use it on the Mac, but it is quite a pain. It's quite frustrating to do. Any questions before I move on?
Alex, sorry, I've got a question.
Yeah.
If you say you've got like a home computer that's a Mac, and then at work or university you've got a Windows, can the file be used across the Mac and Windows, or once you're in Windows you just got to keep it in Windows and vice
Yeah,
versa?
so pretty much when you create a project on a Mac version of NVivo, it creates a file on your computer, like a Word doc file, right? It's called a .nvpx file. And then if you create it on a Windows version, it's a .nvp file. So they're actually two different file types. And whilst you can manually convert one to the other, so you can convert an NVP file to an NVPX file or vice versa, that's not an automatic process. And so if you were going to be working on two separate operating systems, you'd probably need to keep kind of updating them and changing them, and that can be a bit of a minefield to do. So yeah, my recommendation would be to try and avoid that if possible. Um,
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions before I continue? No. Wonderful. All right, so let's start having a look at how to actually use NVivo. That's probably what you all came here for. You didn't come here to just look at me talk across a slide deck in a monotone voice. You came here to learn a little bit about NVivo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my version of NVivo here. Now I've got NVivo 14. Couple of things to sort of be aware of when we're looking at this interface for the first time. Immediately, if you're on the Mac, you'll notice that it looks very different. On the Mac, you've got a much smaller window. This one takes up my entire screen by default. In this sort of middle area here, you will usually have an account logged in. Because of some little wizardry that I've done over the years, I don't have that. It's very exciting. You have the getting started area where you can see I can download NVivo 15. I haven't done it on my desktop yet because I did it on my laptop and I just honestly couldn't be bothered. It's such a minimal improvement that I wasn't really fussed about it. If you do download it, it uses exactly the same license key as the NVivo 14 does at the University of Melbourne. So there's no worries there. So if you wanted to download that, you can. If you think that this class today was like not for you and you thought my dry sense of humor and monotone voice isn't really doing it, there is a getting started tutorial over here that you can access. And then on the right hand side, there's a few extra websites and things that you can use as well. So there's a nice little community you can join. There's the NVivo Academy where you have to pay for some training. I've never accessed that training. I believe it's meant to be pretty good. And then also there's a bit of free transcription credit if you want to use NVivo's transcription service. I have not tried it out. I spoke to someone who had. They said it was, kind of fine, pretty standard transcription service. And then if you want to request and vote for new features, you can do that as well. That's kind of the extra stuff. This blue area on the left here is where we are going to be having a little look at some of our options if we ever need to. If you need to put in a new license key, you can do that in this area. I think it's in the About NVivo area. You can set your options. If you pay for the collaboration cloud, which costs about $500 a year, but allows you to collaborate much more easily than you otherwise would. You can access that here, but most importantly, you can see all of your most recent projects that you have created. What we're going to do is we're going to create our own new project, and this is the part of the training where I'm going to bore you. So if you don't like being bored, if you really get you don't want to listen to me talk about some of the most boring stuff about research data management, that's fine. You can access the recording afterwards. Maybe get up and make a tea, have a coffee, but it's really important, and it's worth me reiterating, and it's something that I would sort of be professionally uh, committed to, and I would consider it a bit of negligence if I didn't talk about these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this sort of plus sign to create a new project. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a title, and I like to use isometrics. So that's year, month, date, just helps with a bit of version management. And this is my online training. Now, crucial things here. Number one, like I said before, your NVivo file is a very, very real file that's created on your computer. And as a result, it's something that can be moved around and shifted around and all of these wonderful things. And so what we need to do, what you need to do, is make sure you know exactly where this is. Once you've chosen a location for it, and I'm going to slot this one, I'm going to start slotting them in my downloads folder because then I can delete them at certain times. So I'm going to put this one in my downloads folder. Once you've got that place set, highlight this, copy it, put it in a research journal so you know exactly where your file is. Now, they tend not to recommend that you put this into cloud storage, things like OneDrive or Dropbox. The reason for that is that unlike other documents that upload and synchronize really quickly, these ones don't. And so if you, and I've had this happen to me before, so I've gone to university, I've worked on my project, fantastic, save it, leave uni, come back home, start working on my project on my desktop computer. Hang on a second, this is an old version. What's going on here? Okay, now I've got two versions. I've got one on my laptop and I've got one on my desktop, and I've got a version management issue, and I'm having a nightmare. That can happen. It's happened to me a couple of times. So I actually really recommend that you kind of stick to one device with an NVivo project if possible, or you're really, really diligent about using OneDrive and version management to make sure that it's always up to date whenever you use it. It is not the end of the world if you have different versions of the same project. NVivo has a really nifty merge feature, which allows you to stitch two projects together, which is wonderful, but it's a bit of a hassle. So ideally, save it locally, work on it, and if you need to work on it on another device, send it over, work on it, send it back. It's not the end of the world if you need to do that. But it's really important that you make a note of where this is on your device. I say that out of experience. I had a consultation with a researcher where I spent an hour and a half trawling through their files, trying to find where they had saved their NVivo project. So really crucial. You can give it a description if you want. This is really good because you're probably likely to be uploading your project to a repository somewhere. So descriptions can help provide context. You talk a bit about what the project's about here. And we always want to keep a log of user actions in case NVivo explodes. It can crash. If it crashes, it's really good that you have a log here so you can keep track of everything that you've done, and you can send that through as like an error report if you need to, or just see things that have happened. We get a beautiful array of 8 languages that we can choose from. The data set that I'm going to be working with today is from the United States. It is about community perceptions of land development in the Down East region of North Carolina, maybe South Carolina, I'm not sure. And I know that it's in US English. If you are working with data that is sort of not in any of these text languages, it's not too bad. Most of this stuff is used for things like word frequency or some of the automated features that I didn't really recommend using anyway. From my experience, NVivo does have a little bit of a problem when it's working with certain scripts that are read like right to left. I consulted someone on a project that was using an Arab script, and that script, which is just really NVivo struggled to recognize it at all when we were working with it. So that's sort of one thing to flag. If you're working on a bilingual project or a multilingual project, that's fine as well. There's most of these sort of text options aren't really going to come into any of the analysis that you're doing. So you can usually just leave it on any of them. And we'll click next. Now, if you're on Mac version, you don't get a next thing. That's okay. Some of these features are already on the Mac window. So, more boring stuff. Number one, we can, if we want to, turn on autosave. However, if we turn on autosave, the undo button is disabled, which is terrible. If the undo button is disabled and you make a mistake, you're ruined. I've seen this happen. I had some researchers, they deleted part of their interpretation. This isn't like other software because NVivo is qualitative software. Most of what you do is super time consuming because you have to go through and you have to interpret often like dozens of interviews or media files or focus groups or surveys. And so deleting that progress is deleting a substantial time a commitment that you've made to your research. And so, nah, we want to make sure that we don't have autosave turned on because it's a nightmare if we run into problems which can happen. Accidentally press delete, you cut something, you make a mistake, you don't realize it. All of these things can happen. So we want to make sure that the undo button is enabled. So we're going to turn off autosave. If you're on the Mac version, you get the best of both worlds. You have autosave, but you can also undo your 5 most recent actions. So if you make a mistake, you sort of want to hope that you recognize that you've made a mistake pretty quickly. And then because we don't have autosave turned on, we are going to display these incredibly annoying save reminders every 15 minutes. They are going to lock up your NVivo and you can't do anything until you say, yes, I want to save, or no, I don't want to save. And then you can continue. We also have a bit of project recovery. We want to create our recovery files every 30 minutes, and we want to create as much as we can. They don't recommend that you upload these to OneDrive. I think you can. And then also they recommend that you save your backups manually. So you also create a copy of your project, you export it, you save that somewhere else as well. So you've basically, in an ideal world, you would have your project in at least 3 places. You'd have the project file that you're working with saved onto your local device. You'd have some of your recovery files saved to either cloud storage or your local device in a different area. And then you would also have some manual backup files that you save to things like external hard drives, cloud storage, things like that. Really, really crucial. You don't want to be one of those researchers that loses their project, which can happen. It's one of those things you hope never happens to you, but I've seen it happen. So you should be really, really diligent about this stuff. All of these decisions that we're making today, strongly recommend that you open up a little OneNote file or a Word document file or something like that, and you write down where everything is supposed to be, and you put that in a nice central area so you kind of know where all of your research data is stored. Really, really crucial. All right. That's it for the research data management talk. All right, that's fine. We can now click create project. Those of you fallen asleep, wake back up now because we're going to create a project in NVivo. We're going to start doing really fun things with it, like putting files into it and analyzing them. So once I click create project, NVivo is going to spin up a new project file for me. It's going to give us this tour. I don't recommend ever sort of not showing it because there's a good chance that you attend this training and then don't start your qualitative analysis until about 6 months from now. I get a lot of researchers who attend this training who are just about to start data collection. And so as a result, they don't really use NVivo for a while. If that's you, keep this tour on, but we can skip it for now because I rate my training and I think I'm a better substitute for the tour. So when we open up our copy of NVivo, there's going to be currently 3 areas that we can look at, but eventually there will be 4. And there are 4 areas, and I'll show you what each and every one of them does. Most important area, I think, is this left-hand side here, this blue area. This is our project navigation. And the way that the course is structured, if you're ever a little bit lost, we are going from top to bottom. So in part 1, we look at data and coding. In part 2, we look at cases. In part 3, we look at notes. In part 4, we look at queries. And in part 5, we look at visualizations. We don't look at every feature in NVivo. We don't look at sets. We don't look at reports because I think that they're almost kind of niche functionality and I don't have all the funding to be able to teach every feature of NVivo. But if you're ever wondering how we're working, we're going from top to bottom. That's the kind of navigation area. At the top here, we have all of these little tabs: home, import, create, explore, and they have all of these lovely little functions on them. If you mouse over any of the functions, you get a nice little tooltip that tells you what it does. And you'll see, or you might not, because NVivo's contrast can be a little bit tough. There are some options that are grayed out. So this coding one, for instance, So I mouse over case classification, you can see the button kind of grays. It doesn't for uncode. Often those are context specific functions. So you need to have a certain type of content selected, a certain item selected, or something like that. So that's the left-hand side, that's the top. In the middle, we currently have one big window. It's eventually going to be two smaller windows with a bit more data in them. NVivo by default opens up into your files area, and then we get this nice little document that tells us about our files, and we can close that. And then we get this nice sort of big splash here, which doesn't really tell us anything interesting. But this middle area, this kind of central workspace, is going to start to be filled out with lots of bits of information as we work through our project. And so what I'm going to do very quickly, I'm going to talk a little bit now about importing files. And once I've done that, I'm then going to give you an opportunity to follow any of the instructions and any of the things that I've just done. So creating a project and then importing the files. We'll do them both together, and I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. But just before I start showing you how to import some files, and I'll give you a link to files to use later on, does anyone have any questions about any of this stuff so far? It's all relatively straightforward, I hope, but does anyone have any questions? No. All right, cool. Well, I suppose I'll keep going then. All right, so we want to import some files, and a lot of use cases for NVivo, you get a lot of people who are working with interview files, and that's the data set that I'm going to be working with today. I've got 4 interview files. They're interviews with residents of this area of the Carolina region, the Down East region in Carolina. And so they're about development, the environment, things like that. And I'm going to import those interview files. But there's a few things that I want to do before I import them. And these are things that you do generally in a lot of other research contexts. The first thing is that, okay, I've got this files area, but I can structure that in a different way. So I don't just have to have all of my files in this files area. Same with any research project, I can create a folder. And the way that I create a folder, and this is something that is really crucial in NVivo, you right click, and the right click in NVivo will become your best friend. The right click in NVivo buries away lots of really important contextual functions. And so if I right click over here on my files area, I can create a new folder. I can import some files. I can import, more specific file types like surveys, or I can import from other pieces of software like Zotero if I was doing a literature review. I can even create my own file. NVivo lets you create your own files and write about them if you want. But I'm going to be creating a new folder. It's going to bring up a nice little menu here where I can give it a name. I'll give it the interviews name. And this is another structure that you'll see a lot repeated in NVivo. Give something a name and then give it a description. And ideally, I recommend wherever you can to fill in these descriptions. You can edit them later if you need to, but I really strongly recommend filling in descriptions wherever available, just because it's an opportunity to write about your research and contextualize things, but it's also really important for other people who might be accessing your work and maybe need a bit of an explanation. So I'm going to click OK, and you can now see that my files area now has a nice little arrow next to it. If I open up those arrows, I can open up this little hierarchy. That's going to be really important because that comes up a lot. And I now have this new interviews area that if I left click on, you can see that that's reflected in this bold area up here. I mention that because it can sometimes be a little bit confusing. I've opened my interviews area, but it's giving me this sort of files document that I can close, but we can check the area that we're in by looking at this area in the top left here. All right, that's creating a folder. Hopefully relatively straightforward, same as in any other piece of software or operating system. We right click, we create a new folder, we give it a name, job done. I now want to import some files into this folder, and I've got loads of ways of doing that. So important point number 2. So number 1 is that right clicking is your best friend. Number 2 is that there's often lots of ways to do the same thing in NVivo, which is quite useful. It's a bit of a nightmare when you're teaching, but it's quite useful to know when you're actually using the software. So if I wanted to import my interview files, there are 3 ways that I could do that. The first one is I could say, okay, well, I want to import files. So it's probably going to be in this import tab. And lo and behold, it is. If I click on import, I can import all of these different types of files. I can import an existing NVivo project. I can import survey data, classifications, bibliography, and stuff. For raw data files, so text files, Word documents, PDFs, audio, video, images, we're just going to be using this very sort of standard looking files option. And that's one way that we can import files. If I click on that, it'll walk me through the process of importing files. I can also, in my interviews folder, right click and I can import some items. And if I right click on the folder, I can also import some items there. There's 3 different ways of going about it. I like to do the function bar at the top. That's just personal preference. So I'm going to click import and then files. On some Mac versions of NVivo, I believe the import tab might be called the data tab. So keep that in mind. And I think when you select files on some versions of, I think the Mac version, you have to choose what type of data you want to import as a file. We're going to be working with text files or Word document files. So I'm going to click Files here, and it is going to open up my little browser where I'm then going to navigate all the way to my data set for today. And I've got these 4 interview files here, and I'm going to share these with you in a little bit as well. If you hold down Shift, you can select multiple ones. If you hold down Control, you can select multiple ones. I'm going to select all 4, and I'm going to click Open. Now, NVivo is going to ask us one question, which is, do we want to create a case for each imported file? Don't worry about that today. We'll learn about that next time. So we'll learn about that tomorrow, about what cases are, but we can leave that unticked for now. And it's likely that we leave it unticked in most cases. And I'm going to click import. NVivo tracks the progress of our import in the bottom left here. And then we have our 4 files that have now been imported into the software. If I double click on them, so if I double click on Barbara's interview, we will get the final window, which is this viewing panel on the right here. And you can, if you're really sort of specific, you can reshape and resize these windows by finding the little double arrows. And that works for most of the windows. And so now I've got Barbara's file opened up here, and I can browse that. And that's going to be our sort of general interface when it comes to NVivo. We're going to have this sort of selection area here, which we can move around and access different areas. And then we're going to be viewing things on the right-hand side. We've got our functions up here, navigation's over here on the left. Some people ask this question, so I like to get it out of the way. This file here that's been imported is not a direct reflection of the file on your device. So if you make any changes to this file in Microsoft Word, if you make any changes to it in NVivo, they're separate. This is now essentially an entirely new file that's stored in NVivo. So if you need to make any changes to it, you can make those changes in Microsoft Word, but you then need to import it again, which is why NVivo has this little edit tick box. So if you do find any, spelling errors or there's something you missed while you were transcribing, anything like that, there's a little edit button that you can tick and you can make changes there as well. Just a sort of odd thing to be aware of. And so what I'd like you to do is, now that you have seen me import some files, I would like you to sort of just, if you can, replicate those steps. Create a project in NVivo, create a folder, and import those interview files. I will share that link that I have there in the chat so that you don't have to type it out. That's to a OneDrive link. It actually has a copy of today's slide deck as well, if you are interested. But you can access that link, and that will give you access to the data. You can download that, import it into NVivo. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And if anyone has any questions at all, please do ask now while I've got a little bit of time to sort of refresh my voice. But I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then I'll move on and start talking about coding for the rest of the session today. Does anyone have any questions or any difficulties with this sort of early little step? If you're happy for me to move on, you can put a thumbs up as well if you want to give me a thumbs up emoji, and then I can sort of progress onwards. Otherwise, I'll give you a little bit more time. One thumbs up. Appreciate
Hi,
it.
Alex.
Hi.
So I'm Yuki. I have a question about storing the file at local computer. So the question is that I have only limited storage left, and I normally would just pop it in the drive, the OneDrive.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, that might cause some issues. Would you recommend, would a hard drive work? Would it work when I attach a hard drive to the laptop and then save it directly in the hard drive? I don't know if that's maybe.
Yeah. So a couple of things to think about there. So the first one is it's okay to use OneDrive if that's going to be the only device that you access the file on. Because if you're sort of using the same file on OneDrive, it's going to just be sort of keeping it stored on, or made available to you anyway. Um, if you store it on a external hard drive, the big thing to be aware of is how that hard drive actually connects to your computer. So if it uses one of those sort of older USB 2.0 or 3.0 sort of B type connectors, so the ones that kind of look like this, like these
Yeah.
ones that you can't put in, that usually, from my experience, is not fast enough for NVivo to work super well. And so my recommendation would be if you can use a USB-C type connector, so the sort of over ones, they work much faster. They're really, really fast. They're really, really good. If you can get something like that, then that would be a good option. Otherwise, OneDrive, if you're just going to be using it on the same device anyway, and you're not going to be accessing on another one, would work well. Or a high-speed external hard drive would also work.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Great question. All right. I think we're going to move on just because I don't want to keep you anytime past 11 a.m. I know that's good morning tea time. You've done some professional development, so you can go get a coffee, have a cookie, have a couple of cookies, go to Subway, get 3 cookies, anything like that. So I'm going to talk about coding now for a little bit. So coding is the bread and butter of NVivo, and it's one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the most important processes in qualitative work. You're taking your textual data and you're sticking it into meaningful categories, and meaning is really hard to define when it comes to this stuff because it's going to be very, very dependent on your own research project. There's 3 different types of coding. This is just a framework that I use because I find it quite useful for teaching. There's descriptive coding, which is often ignored. Descriptive coding is actually quite useful. Descriptive coding is where you code all the questions, all the answers to question one to a code called question one. And we'll look at this with cases next week. Cases are a descriptive code in NVivo. They're really good at organizing your data and creating nice little overlaps that we can explore later on. Okay, what were the key themes that I identified in question one? NVivo gives us a really nice way of doing that if we use descriptive codes. We then have topic coding, which is sort of where you start out with coding, where you're sort of highlighting a sentence or a paragraph or something and saying, okay, what is this about? How would I describe this in, a word or two? And then can I see that description being repeated across my data set? And eventually you end up doing things like analytic coding, pretty much all qualitative methods. You're going to end up doing analytic coding where you start to merge things together and try to build a broader structure. Okay, so if I was doing a research project on casual employment, maybe you would identify, okay, yes, there's people who are casually employed. That's like a descriptive code. They talk about having insecure hours and overwhelming numbers of contracts. Maybe you could analytically code that into a broader theme of what it feels like to be precarious. Probably have other things in there as well that you would identify. And so that's sort of what I mean by analytic coding. And it's good to know the difference between the three because some are going to be a little bit more easier than others. Sometimes I see researchers that jump straight to analytic coding, that they try to identify themes straight away, which makes sense. If you're doing something called thematic analysis, you probably think that you're supposed to identify themes straight away. That's unlikely to happen. You're going to often need to engage with your data quite substantially, identify lots of different topic codes, and then start to merge and move those topic codes into the themes that you then identify in the text. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and it's almost like a coder's block where I see researchers trying to identify a theme that describes their entire data set straight away. It's really overwhelming. It's really difficult to do, and you don't need to do it. There's also inductive and deductive coding, which are worth mentioning. So inductive codes are where you come up with codes sort of from the ground up. And so you're not using any kind of like existing descriptions or things like that. Whereas deductive codes, you often have the codes available and you're applying them to your data set. So I do some critical discourse analysis. I've done critical discourse analysis of Clive Palmer's UAP National Press Club speech, and I used a deductive code for some of that, which was the strategies that he used when he was arguing about the economy and the pandemic and things like that. You tend to find yourself using a bit of both. You're often deductively using stuff that's already out there in the world, and then you're inductively coming up with perhaps new perspectives or dimensions on your data. So I often find that researchers tend to do a little bit of both. It's just important to know sort of why you'd want to use different ones and to think through them and to justify them. That's the kind of theoretical stuff that I try to be as general as possible because there's so many different qualitative methods out there. But what that means when we go back into our NVivo project is that we're going to have a few different ways of engaging with this interview. So what I want to do is I want to move from this interviews area and I want to move down to this codes area over here and say like typically codes are themes that you identify in your data. And I'm going to close that. And you can see that I still have my interview open on the right-hand side here. And that's going to be crucial. You're going to need to have an interview open on the right-hand side for this activity today. And with our codes, what we can do is we can highlight some text. So let's say we want to highlight all of the responses to question 1. It's our first thing that we're going to do. So I'm going to take question 1. I'm going to highlight all of this text down to question 2. I'm going to right-click. And I'm going to select code selection. And I'm going to create in my codes folder a new top level code. And I'm going to call this question 1, and I'll select code selection here. That's a relatively cumbersome way of coding, which is selecting all of the data and then right clicking. Another way of doing that is I can select all of question 2, shorter question. And then if I hold down left click, I can drag into this big blue area over here, if I'm on the Windows version, and I can create a new code there, which I can call question 2. Now, on the Mac version, you can't drag and create a new code. Instead, what you need to do, oh, it's a save reminder. How wonderful. Instead, on the Mac version, what you need to do is you need to right click and create a new code. So right click, new code, question 3. And then you can select your text again. And we can go and hold down left click and drag it over. You tend to need to hold down the left click a little bit. If you try and drag it straight away, particularly on the Mac version, and particularly if you're using a trackpad, NVivo will then go and sort of deselect things for you. And so I can do that again for question 4, drag that over, question 4. Now you might be wondering what any of this actually means. You might be a little bit confused. What I have here on this left-hand side with these codes, if I double click on them, so if I double click on question 1, you can see that it is going to bring up for me all of the data that I've coded there. So, and that's going to be across different, multiple files. So if I open up Charles's file and I code Charles's data to question 1, and if I reopen that code, you can now see I've got Charles's data there as well. So for descriptive codes, this can actually be quite useful if you want to do this, because this is a nice little trick. You can then have this open, and if you want, you can code from this. So you can code from your codes, which might be useful if you are expecting there to be relatively similar themes across your questions rather than similar themes across the whole interview if you're asking quite different questions. And so you consider these are little descriptive codes here. If I wanted to start doing some topic coding, if I was to take this sentence here, and I'm going to don't have much time, but I'm going to get you to do some engagement here. If I took this sentence, my family moved here when I was 2 years old in 1969. Does someone want to offer a suggestion as what I could code this as? What topic is this under? You just type it into the chat if you want. And I will literally just take the first suggestion that someone types in just to check that you're still engaged after 55 minutes. Family, fantastic. Family, migration, brilliant. All right, so I'm going to do both because I can. So I'm going to take this sentence here and I'm going to code this to family. Oop. And then I am going to take the exact same sentence and I can code it to migration. There is nothing stopping me from coding the same text multiple times, right? It's, you know, especially early on in a research project, you're probably going to be doing lots of this kind of organization and you're going to be doing lots of these things. I was in a qualitative methods class 4 years ago now. It's terrifying, where we had like one very short interview and one of the students in that who was analyzing that said, okay, I've done qualitative research. I've identified 150 codes in this 500-word interview that we conducted, which can happen. It's really exciting. It's kind of a creative process when you're identifying codes. And I certainly recommend, especially for the first time that you do it in a project, that you be as creative as possible and you just see what works and what fits. Because as we'll see next week, because we're running out of time today, there's lots of ways that we can organize this. It's not all just going to be on this flat level. For example, if I created a new code and I just called it questions, what I can do is I can just take all of my questions and I can stick them under there. And I have this little hierarchy. And that's great for descriptive codes, but this is fantastic for thematic analysis, where you can start to take, we could take family and migration. We could put that under a kind of like connection and history or something like that. We could put that under a sort of more general topic. We could take both of them, we could stick them under there if we wanted. And you can start to organize your data in a really interesting way. You can start to look at things. And I find that this kind of stuff, where you're just coding data into lots of different areas, is 90% of what you do in NVivo. And for a lot of researchers, is really all that you need to do in NVivo, which is why I try to cover it in an hour. It's hard to cover how you go about coding and how you do all of these wonderful things. But for many of you, you might find that this is all that you need, because what this is going to allow you to have is it's just going to allow you to have, if you're working with 20 different interviews, you're going to have these areas. And then when you need to write your, analysis, you can just double click on them, open them up. You've got your quotes there. You can write about them. You can connect them together. And then you can move on, open up the next one, write about them, connect them together, and do all of those things. For a lot of people, that's really all that NVivo needs to be used for. However, I teach much more than this stuff. And I am going to kind of go through a little bit of a plenary and wrap up today's session and provide a link for some feedback. But I'm then also going to hang around afterwards. So if you want to practice this, which I'd strongly recommend that you do, I'll be here and I'll be able to answer any questions. I get paid to be here for an hour afterwards. So if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for. But I just want to wrap up a little bit about what we've done today. And so I'll move over to a little bit of a wrap up. I haven't covered everything that I wanted to, because I'm like way too ambitious sometimes with the things that I teach. But we've taken our first steps. And this has sort of been not like a taster of NVivo, because we've done a little bit more than that. But this has been okay, let's see what NVivo can do. Let's see how we set things up appropriately and how we do a little bit of our coding. And so we've created a file, we've imported some data, and we've coded that data. Next week, we'll look at refining and iterating some of our code. So I'll show you how to do that. Not next week, sorry, tomorrow morning. And so that's what I'll look at before I do the cases and case classifications. I was a little bit ambitious today. What I would love for you to do, because I don't like being fired from work, and I actually really enjoy this NVivo teaching. I find it quite fulfilling to be able to do, is if you could so lovingly go to this feedback link here that I've also provided in the chat. Also, if you're watching the recording, it's the same feedback link. So if you want to put feedback in on the recording, that's fine as well. I don't mind. Do take some time to fill that in where possible. And let me know how you felt about today's training. Did you like it? Did you hate it? That's fine. Be gentle. I've been called certain names in previous feedback. Someone's called me irritating. I think someone called me unprofessional once, which was fair. Someone said I had trivia host energy. Don't know if that's a compliment or not, but be generous, be gentle, and be constructive where possible. Things that worked, things that didn't. And if you need to send me an email, if you have any questions at all that maybe emerge after the training today, you can email me at this address that I'll also type in. I'm pretty good at responding to them now. Send me anything that you like. And if you have any questions, if you want to play around with this coding thing, hang around afterwards. Otherwise, have a lovely day. It is stunning outside. So please do have a wonderful day.